Let's talk about negotiating. Now, first off, I'm no expert in negotiating or tactics. There are people who are better than me at this, and there's a lot of cultural standards and norms that may apply. So I'm going to tell you what has worked for me and also what I have seen work for others. Underneath it all, there are some few basic principles that can be applied. And this common theme and common tactics is something that will help you as well. But keep that in mind. Cultures do play a big role here. All right, let's get started. If you get asked, what salary do you want in an interview? What do you say? Think about this for a second. You can pause the video. What will be your answer when somebody asks you, what are your salary expectations? All right, you thought about it? This is what I would say. Well, I know that the average software developer in Silicon Valley, let's say I'm applying there, makes roughly $120,000 a year. So I think that's a good place for us to start. That was it. That's what I would say. Now, why is that? And this goes to my very first point. You don't want to end the conversation. You see what I did here? I didn't actually answer their question and say, well, I want $90,000 per year. All I did was do something called anchoring, where I tell them this is where we want our conversation to start. I want the conversation to start around the number $130,000 a year. And I'm not saying that this is what I want to get paid. This is just simply me starting our conversation so that we can talk about things. All I said was the average software engineer. In negotiation, especially when it comes to salary negotiation, you're going to want to give an actual number to end the conversation. Instead, you want to keep the conversation going by giving something like an industry average and make it clear that you're merely starting the negotiation here and not ending it. And that's how we start negotiating. Let's talk about the next point. We want to give reason for everything because we all know the problem with negotiating, right? If you say you want more salary or more vacation time, we kind of sound greedy. We don't want to sound greedy and that we're money hungry and that all we do is care about these numbers and ourselves. As we know, nobody really likes greedy people, right? As a matter of fact, this is the main reason people don't negotiate. They just don't want to offend people and seem mean and hungry just for money. Instead, you want to give a reason for everything. For example, if somebody gives you an offer, and this is something that we'll talk in later on videos, and says, hey, we're going to offer you $80,000 a year. What do you think? Are you in or are you out? Instead of saying, well, no, I need more time, maybe you could say something along the lines of, well, thank you very much for this offer. It's very generous, and I'm very excited potentially working with your company. However, this is a big family decision, and I'm looking to work at a company for many years. So I would like to discuss this with my wife or my partner and have some time to make sure that this is something we are both comfortable with. And you see what I did here? I just asked for more time or to not give an answer right away, perhaps over the phone, and instead speak to my partner. And all I did was give reason why I'm doing things. I'm not being selfish. I don't want more time just strictly for myself. This is something that I'm doing because I have somebody else that is involved in the decision. And by giving a reason like that, as an interviewer, that makes sense, right? I mean, the interviewer would be doing the same in your shoes. Let's talk about the next point. Always negotiate. I cannot emphasize this enough. You see, negotiation is quite difficult, and it is uncomfortable for most people. Actually, I've never met somebody that just loves negotiating. Maybe one or two. But negotiating is very tricky because it is very different between social dynamics and cultures and demographics. Appropriate advice for somebody in North America who's a white male may be different than somebody in a completely different location. There are so many factors at play here, and you know your culture best. But at the same time, don't use that as a reason to not negotiate. Being able to negotiate is present in all cultures. And you got to keep that in mind. You're never going to damage a relationship or have an offer revoked just by negotiating. I've never heard of anybody doing that, or a company saying, no, we're taking the offer off the table because you're negotiating. So always negotiate. If you never ask, the answer is always no. And the larger the company, usually the more room they have to negotiate. I actually have a friend who works at a company where the same two developers that have the same job description, the same responsibilities, have a difference of $60,000 salary difference. One negotiated when they got hired, the other one didn't. And the other one is going to get raises and is going to increase, but it's going to take a lot longer for them to make up that $60,000 difference. Another point, and this is a very important one, is be positive. You have to realize that negotiating doesn't mean being mean. It's the exact opposite. You want to explore the situations that are available to you. And negotiations are win-win situations. If you go into a negotiation thinking that you have to screw over the other person, or there's always one person that wins and one person that loses, that's not a good way to negotiate. Negotiation is finding a balance between what two people want. And then finally, when negotiating, you have to have stakes. What does that mean? No, that doesn't mean delicious meat. Stakes means you have to have something on the line. If there's no risk and you knew for sure that the other side would sign a contract or accept the salary, then what incentive do they have to offer you more? If they know that you're desperate and this is the only job that you can get, well, there's zero chance of you negotiating with them. Your alternatives is what stakes are. By showing companies that you have other options, maybe you have multiple offers or another company that wants to hire you, you allow the person across the table who's negotiating with you to know that you're willing to walk away from the table without a deal. And that gives you a lot of power. So the best thing to allow you to negotiate is to have other options. You see, recruiters are always willing to negotiate if they want you, especially when they have a chance to lose you. Nothing makes a recruiter more angry or nervous than losing to a competitor company. And that's why you'll see people that have job offers from a big company like Amazon or Google that are able to get hired really easily at other companies like Microsoft, because those companies are competing with each other for some of the top developers or engineers. And if one wants a candidate, it means it's good enough for the other. And before I finish this video, I want to give another example of something that happened to me. I once got contacted by a book publisher, and they wanted me to co-author a book. And initially, they offered to pay a certain amount upfront before the book got published, and then I would get a percentage of the royalties. Instead of just accepting the offer, I messaged back and said that I'm very thankful for the opportunity, and it sounds fantastic. However, based on the scope, time, and research that will take to write this book, I would like to discuss a higher upfront payment. I was very positive. I also told them that my time is valuable, so I showed them stakes that this is something that if I do it, it will take away from my other projects. I negotiated by telling them that I would like to ask for more. I gave a reason to the fact of why it deserves more upfront payment, and I kept the conversation going. And because of that, they came back with a higher upfront payment just by sending one email. But now let's talk about more detailed things, such as handling offers and getting raises. Using these techniques that we discussed, we're going to go into the next couple of videos and see how we can apply this to real life situations. I'll see you in that one. Bye-bye.